Hi, welcome back to the Advocacy Update. I'm Jen Goodale, and I'm pleased to be joined today with Lieutenant General Kelly, who's our President CEO here at MOAA. And we're excited to talk about Summer Advocacy in Action, which is a continuation of our event in the spring. So let's talk about what those three topics are going to be for this year.
Yeah, I think, as you said, we're trying to continue things that we were talking about in the spring. So this summer, we're going to continue to talk about the basic allowance for housing restoral. We wanted it to go back to 100% from the 95%. We're going to talk about what we think is a once-in-a-generational need to increase the enlisted pay tables, particularly for our most youngest and junior enlisted members. And we're going to talk about what we've been talking about for a while, is let's get the Richard Starr Act across the finish line.
It's been way too long and it needs to happen. Let's talk a little bit more about each of those topics. Starting with the BAH restoration. We know that there's a provision included in the House version of the NDAA that would restore BAH to 100% for 2025. That's not all we're looking for though, right?
Yeah, I think we've recognized that, one, part of the overall compensation package has to be full recognition that people need their full housing allowance. The rental markets have gotten really difficult, our housing purchase prices have gotten really difficult, and so we need to make sure that we're taking that worry out of the hands of our servicemen and women. And so in addition to restoring it, we want to make sure that they're agile when prices change, when things happen. Make sure that DOD is agile enough to make sure that they can make the adjustments that are needed so that our servicemen and women don't fall behind the changes in housing prices and those things that happen.
Yeah, and when your housing allowance isn't keeping up, especially in the junior enlisted ranks, it's really challenging to make ends meet. So talk a little bit more about the targeted pay raise.
Yeah, I think, as we mentioned up front, this is a once-in-a-generational thing. It's very likely, given the challenges we have in the country, that we're going to need a lot from our men and women in uniform, and particularly our junior enlisted folks who are going to carry a big, heavy burden. Those folks, because of the way compensation works, end up being the group who has the least margin for error. So when you don't give them their housing allowance, or you don't pay them their full wages, or inflation comes in, they don't have the ability to adjust as everybody else does. So what we're asking for is, let's adjust their pay table, not just the annual pay raise that everybody deserves and everybody's going to get, but for those most junior enlisted folks, there needs to be adjustment to the pay table so they can keep up with those things and they can absorb some of the pain that we know that comes out there.
And both versions of the National Defense Authorization Act do have something in there. We just need to make sure that there's something included in the final bill that gets passed.
Yeah, the House, through their quality of life panel and the work that they did in the House version of the NDAA, had a really substantial number, 19.5% total increase. On the Senate side, they had a little bit more modest, 5.5%. Recognition by both sides that something needs to happen, particularly for this group of people. The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, and we'll get to that, but we're really supportive of them recognizing that this group of people in particular, everybody needs to keep up with inflation, but this group needs a reset.
Yeah, and one more element that could be included in the NDAA would be the Major Richard Starr Act. We haven't seen it included on the House version. What about the Senate side?
Yeah, so we still have a chance on the Senate side. We've been pushing for this for a while, and we hear a lot of folks who are supportive of it. And it comes out, and the numbers are really high, over 70 senators, sometimes over 270 congressmen. But when push comes to shove, and it's really time to put it in, it ends up being this say-do gap. And so we have an opportunity here, right at the finish line, for the Senate to either add it into their NDA or just to pass it outright. I think it's gotten past the point where we talk about how important it is, and we talk about taking care of our combat injured. Those folks who most need help and most need support, and it's time to do it. And so we're trying to make sure we can push on the Senate to get it done this year so that we don't go through another year of this same argument and same discussion. It's time now.
Right. So as we launch our Summer Advocacy in Action, what can our members at home do to help?
Yeah, first of all, you guys can go to your local congressman. You have an opportunity to call up and make visits there. You can visit our Legislative Action Center and continue to weigh in. AIA happened one day a year, but really this campaign is 365. Your voice is what matters. They hear from us all the time, but what they really want to hear from is the folks who live and visit and vote in their district, and that's you. So please get in there and help us.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.